Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're here on the Good Bit podcast, and I'm joined by my good, close personal friend, Madeleine McGirk. Welcome back, Madeleine. It's been, you know what, you were my last guest right before, peak lockdown 2020. I say last guest, it's not as if I had lots of guests on at that point, but
Yeah,
it was you,
well,
and then it was nothing. It was nothing.
Well, I'm glad to be back, and hopefully this will be like the first one of us not being locked down anymore, and it'll be like a bookend situation.
We are still on Zoom though, unfortunately. We have seen each other in person since then.
Mm-hmm.
We saw each other 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago,
maybe 3. Yeah, recently.
Yeah, just before Christmas, and that was lovely. We probably could have done the podcast then, but I was like, let's just wait till the new year and we'll get it started properly.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought Zoom might be easier than me, coming through to you, or you coming through to me. So we have, it's 2022 now. We have the luxury of doing it like this, which is nice. How was your Christmas? You just told me. I'm going to pretend that we never had this conversation 50 minutes ago. How was your Christmas?
It was lovely. Well, it was a mixed bag. I had the nicest Christmas Eve, the nicest Christmas. And then on Christmas night, my partner tested positive for COVID. So then our Boxing Day, which is I'd see the other half of my family. And then 2 days later, we see his family, was all cancelled immediately. And we just went into isolation. And then I think 2 days later, I tested positive as well. So we have just been in a little COVID lockdown for the last couple of weeks.
But both feeling... a good start to the year in that sense, where I'm exactly the same. I tested positive on the 5th of January. So those 4 days were brilliant. And then, I was just, as you were saying, it was so nice to kind of have that time off to just kind of sit and do nothing for as many days as you want,
Gosh, I know I'm so much more antisocial than I realized, because having 10 days all to myself, where you just physically can't go anywhere and do anything. And I'm like, sorry, can't come, COVID. Sorry, can't join, COVID.
It's like a legit excuse. It's like a legit excuse, because usually you need to make something up, you know what I mean? But now it's you don't want to
decline.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want to put that on someone else and be like, I do have COVID. I could maybe still come out and put that person in that situation. Because I was meant to go for dinner with my mates the night I was feeling unwell, which I'm considering my first day, because I was unwell that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just cancelled it, because although I tested negative, I was like, we're not going to risk this. And then it was the next morning I tested positive, and I was like, I would have felt so bad if I'd went out that night,
We had the same thing. Boxing Day, my dad and my stepmom had bought in proper Christmas dinner stuff, a bunch of presents. The fridge was full of all our favorite stuff. And it's 1 a.m. the night before, where I'm like, Scott gets the 2 lines, and I was like, oh my God, we're going to have to cancel my whole family, and my gran will be there and all these people. So on the one hand, thank God we checked. On the other hand, the guilt, I don't know how much money they must have spent on all that food and all the nice stuff for us to go, I'm sorry, can't.
But wait, so did they still have Christmas celebrations just without you guys, or did it just cancel the whole thing?
Well, no, because we had been with my sister and that on Christmas Day, and then all of us were going to go Boxing Day. So the fact we tested positive meant they had to isolate until they tested negative. So it was by association, we just cancelled the entire thing. And I was like, oh my God, the guilt was unbelievable.
So what sort of things were you watching then when you were isolating? Because you said it was crap TV, but what was it?
Oh, it's not good stuff. So I am obsessed with really weird TV, anything that just does not make sense. So I think it started with Louis Theroux, how he does his weird weekends and his odd documentaries.
Yeah.
Well, I have taken that concept and run with it. And so Sky History is my new favorite thing. And Blaze, I think, is the other one, or Discovery maybe. Anyway, shows where people go into the forest and look for Bigfoot, or investigate UFOs, or the Bible Network, just things that are really bizarre, but the people involved are super into them.
Really entertaining as well, yeah.
Oh, I'm just obsessed with people who care that much about anything. And I'm like, and I watch it for 12 hours. My favorite for this quarantine was The Curse of Oak Island, and it's these guys who own an island and are convinced that medieval people buried treasure there, and they just dig in different parts looking for it, and they don't ever find it.
No, it's probably not even there.
Always think they're just about to, and I love it.
No, I can see how that can probably be obsessive, because you end up buying into it, don't you? And you're thinking maybe it is there, and you're trying to
I'm like, God, maybe Bigfoot is a thing. And you're like, no, okay.
Yeah.
What about you? What's been getting you through years?
I thought I would like do more than I have been in terms of like watch more. I feel like it has been going quite quick. I've been watching like lots of reruns of like Friends and Practical Jokers and the kind of easy watching programs and stuff like that, and Seinfeld as well. You ever watch Seinfeld?
No, it's on my list because there's tons of it, right? There's like
9
seasons and seasons.
Yeah. Because that's always like the comparison to Friends. I always say that Friends is like my favorite program ever. So like the two classic American comedies from the 90s were like Seinfeld and Friends.
And do you like Seinfeld? I've heard very mixed things.
I like it. I feel like I would like it more if I was like grown up in the 90s in America. You know what I mean? But you can say that about anything. You could probably say that about the film we're going to talk about today as well. But yeah, like I like it. It's quite quirky. You know what I mean? Like it's very like Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian, who's like the main guy, is just this. He comes up with these ridiculous things that you would never think about, and it's like when he puts it into perspective, it's quite funny to think about these things. So from that case, it is good, but it's, in my opinion, it's got nothing on Friends. But that's obviously the debate, you know. But I'd recommend it, especially someone who's lived in America. Like I think that's, you might end up finding something to relate to. I don't know. It's
referenced so heavily and so much that I feel like I've seen it. And I've seen like the comedians in cars getting coffee, you know, where Seinfeld interviews a bunch of people. But I never watched the show. I think because it wasn't on anything until recently.
Yeah.
And then because it's like so many seasons, it feels like a big commitment to start.
Yeah. No, I'm exactly the same with TV shows. If it's any more than a certain amount, and it's more so episodes per season. So even if it's like 22 episodes a season, I'm like, I really want to, but that's like a lot of time. But then again, who am I? You know what I mean? Like I'll watch it and it'll be fine.
Who am I?
I'm a nobody. But yeah, so like, I had the DVDs of Seinfeld like season 1 years ago when I first watched Friends as well. So I was like, right, okay, I'll watch that. And I never clicked with it as much. So now that it's on Netflix, I was like, I'm going to give it another proper go. And I remembered a couple of the first episodes, and I do like it. It's easy watching. It's the type of show that you can literally, when you are in the house doing nothing for 10 days, you can just let it play. You know, it's one of those shows, which is good, you know.
Oh, well, that's a good one, because we're about to go on holiday, hopefully, and I think we'll only have Netflix, but not TV.
Right.
And so if there's something like that you can have on while you're cooking or something, that's a good one.
All you need is Netflix these days, you know.
Well, that's a good shout.
Yeah, where are you going on holiday? If you don't mind me asking. Skiing.
We're going skiing for 2 whole weeks, which I'm so excited about. Obviously, we both have to still be testing negative a week from now, so we'll see. Because I know the results are funny if you've like just had it recently. So
it's just I've got lots of questions.
Yeah, it's a big caveat of if we both test negative and if we're both, you know, all of that. So I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself, but if it all goes well, maybe Seinfeld will be our little background TV show.
Oh no, I hope I've not recommended something you're going to really dislike. You're going on holiday thinking like this is going to be like this great thing that we're going to get a new show and stuff, and you're just not going to like it.
I'll just blame you entirely if it's terrible to like.
A lot of people do that anyway. That's fine. So yeah, in terms of like just watching films and things like that, like I have been watching a few big ones to kind of tick off the list. Most notably, Titanic. You ever seen Titanic?
Oh yes.
So I'd never seen it. I'd never seen it ever.
Okay.
And it's finally, mostly because it wasn't on anything, like it wasn't on Netflix or anything.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's just recently gone on Sky Movies, and it's just right now Sky Movies has a thing on where it's like, it's maybe only on the channel for a little bit. I don't know. And you've only got it for a couple of weeks or something. So I watched it while it was on, and I really enjoyed it. But I feel like it's such a big film. It deserves like its own episode, video, something like that. Do you know what I mean? To really break it down. But I feel like sometimes with these big films almost have either too much to talk about or not enough opinions to justify the big films. I just end up not doing anything. So
well, and they're so famous, they're so heavily referenced, right? That you're like, you kind of know what it's going to be before you even see it, because you're like, you hear all these things, or you see the parodies before you see the film.
What am I going to say that's not already been said?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Leonardo Titanic DiCaprio, is a pretty big one.
You know, Leo's just looking young and handsome and stuff. Everyone's going to say that, you know.
Celine Dion nailing it.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, the song's not actually in the film. It's like the credits.
Yeah. I think but I think the music is, right? The music's in the background when they're doing their flying thing.
The whole flying thing. That's quite sweet though, isn't it? That's a cute scene.
Yeah, that is lovely. I can't watch it because it's too sad for me. Anything where I know it ends tragically, I can't enjoy the happy bit that comes before it.
Do you know what I think though? I can't enjoy the happy bit. Do you know, I think though, like knowing that something tragic is going to happen is the interesting part.
No.
I feel like I put it off for so long.
Yeah.
Sorry,
you can tell from the film I picked this week that heavy angsty films are not for me, right? Anything that's like vaguely unhappy at any point, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Too much.
No, I get you. I put it off for so long because it's so long. And I was like, oh, it's 3 and 12 minutes. Yeah, it wasn't 12 minutes. I was like, I'm not watching that. Why not though? Like, it's just 3 episodes of a TV show if you're looking at it like that, but I don't know.
I have a vague memory of having it on video and it being across 2 videos because it was so
long.
Really? Yeah, I think that was that one. There was 2 and you had to switch halfway through because it was so long.
I just switching halway through. It's like that's the happy side of the video, then there's the sad one.
I could just watch the first tape and then I'd love the film. Yeah.
But I think like knowing that was going to happen, I wanted to see how it was done. You know what I mean? Because it's like this massive film. You just assume it's going to be great, but it was very well done.
Have you watched the behind the scenes stuff yet, where they're all in the big? It's like a big tank of water that they filmed it in, and it's like.
Oh, I'm curious though. I think that'd be really interesting. Is that on YouTube or anything, or is it like, do you need to get like the DVD?
I don't know where. I'm sure it'll be on YouTube. I think I saw it on a DVD at some point, but it's like but the set, the logistics of filming in like a big tank of water and like the lighting even is like.
Yeah. You know, I was watching like the Harry Potter box set recently and the behind the scenes thing on that, and I think it was Goblet of Fire. Is that the one where it's the Triwizard tournament? I think so.
Yeah.
And he has to go underwater with all the mermaids and things like that. Yeah, because Cedric Diggory's there. And another sad ending, RIP. But like they're filming the underwater scenes and it's in this big tank, you know. And I was always thinking like that must be impossible to film in it. And they filmed it in like really small moments, and like Harry or Daniel Radcliffe was underwater for 3 seconds, and they filmed 3 seconds, and then he took a breath, and then he did another bit for 3 seconds.
Oh my god!
This must be tragic. I don't know how to do that.
That sounds awful. Imagine being the actor in that. The pressure if you get the one bit wrong. Like, and then it's like, okay, reset for these 3. Like, oh god.
Also, he had to open his eyes underwater. I can't do that.
I can, but it stings. It's not for me.
Can you see anything?
No, I think it's been a long time, but I remember as a point of pride trying to do it.
Right. I'm just asking you these random questions as if you have like all this life experience. Like, can you see underwater?
Yes.
Who can't? In terms of like you yourself, in terms of watching films, I may have asked you this last time we did the podcast together, which we talked about Birds of Prey. I don't know about you, but like when we did the episode, it was like it had this big build up. This film was coming out, and it's Margot Robbie and the Harley Quinn story and stuff. We saw the film. We did the episode. We kind of both didn't love it, and we thought, not sure about it. And then I never heard anybody speak about it again. I felt as if we cussed the film.
Yeah, when I listened to that back, I was like, man, I've got a lot of opinions. It's like, didn't know that. But okay, yes, that film, I just was like, the soundtrack was great. Everything else was not. But then I wondered if it was just like, you know how Hollywood can just generate buzz about whatever it chooses. But then people see the film and it's like the buzz just ends because they're like, I feel like that was it. Like it was everyone's Halloween costume and then it was done. Like that was. I mean, also, I think that's fair. I think that's kind of what it warrants.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it deserves to be a Titanic that goes on for 20 more years, right?
We posted that podcast in February 2020, and then in March 2020, it was like a global pandemic. So maybe that was the issue why no one spoke about it again. But still, like...
The news cycle changed, I guess.
No one was talking about Margot Robbie's recent performances.
Yeah, I forgot about the timing of it. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, but I just thought it was funny because we spoke about it so like opinionated and stuff, and then just we never spoke about it again. But maybe that's because we didn't love it as much.
Did you ever watch it again?
Oh no.
No, yeah.
No. Maybe I should. I really don't want to, but maybe I should. That tells you everything, though, doesn't it? Like if you don't.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like if you haven't watched it again or like bought the DVD or whatever, you're like, that's totally that says enough.
I mean, like we saw it at the cinema. That was a nice thing. Like it would have been so much worse, I think, if we just watched it in the house. The fact we got to see it in the big screen, I think, added to the fact that the soundtrack's great, and even some of the fights were quite cool. But
the fighting, that was good.
So yeah, maybe I asked this in that podcast we did. But do you have like an early memory of going to the cinema? Do you have like a first cinema experience that you can tell us about? I
remember a few, but I don't know which came first. I remember Milan really.
Oh, very
I
good.
remember
Yes.
seeing that in the cinema and that being like a really early one. And I remember, I want to say one of the Toy Stories, but I don't know which one. And Tarzan, that was another one. And I don't know which came first. I should, because I love Disney, but I can't remember which came out first. But I just remember being like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then went on to study film.
For Tarzan, or like just being in the cinema?
Cinema in general.
Right.
I've been going to theaters since I was teeny, because there's the pantomime and children's shows and stuff, and my mum's very into that. But cinema, I think, came a bit later. I guess because it's hard to sit through a film and be quiet for that long when you're that wee.
Right.
It came later, and I was like, oh, hang on now, this is pretty good. And then I got a little bit obsessed and wanted to go and see everything at the cinema.
Yeah.
But also lived in Perth, and there was really nothing to do apart from go to the cinema. So it became a bit of a thing. But yeah, I don't know which came first. Do you know? Fair. Do you know which of yours was first?
Yeah, well, I have an early memory, so I always just consider that my first, and it was Monsters, Inc.
That's a good one.
So it would have been that, or at least around that time. I can't remember what the first movie I ever watched was. Do you know what I mean? Like in the house on video or whatever. But like, I think it was that, and like I remember it was the Odeon cinema, and I don't know if it's just the style of the Odeon cinemas, if it's just like big, when you go in, there's stairs to take you up to the seats and stuff. If it was like big kind of slabs for stairs. But I remember like me and like a bunch of other kids that were in the cinema just like running and jumping down the stairs during the film. And like I'm someone that like hates when other people are around me in the cinema now. I can just imagine how annoyed that must have been. Like, it
must have been a daytime one for kids specifically, surely.
Saturday afternoon, probably, seeing the new Disney film. But Monsters Inc.'s great though. Like, it's such a good one for, taking your kids to see it, and for adults as well. You know?
I watched that one I think last Christmas for the first time in ages, and I was like, oh, this is so much better than I remember it being good, but like it was really, it stands up.
There's a new series on Disney Plus. It's like Monsters at Work or something like that, and it's like either it's like a spin-off of Monsters University, which was the prequel to Monsters Inc.
Yeah,
and I think it's like the series is like just them on their everyday business. It might not be Mike and Sully, it might just be other monsters from the film, but I think that's interesting.
Oh, I might look it up.
Yeah, but I mean, I definitely saw Toy Story 4 at the cinema, like the most recent one. I didn't see 1, 2, or 3 at the cinema. I don't think. Maybe I did, but I doubt it. Toy Story 1 came out before I was born, not to make you feel
I think 1 was too early. I don't know when 2 was.
Late 90s.
Memory. Maybe it was 3 that I saw then.
Well, Toy Story 3 was like 2010 though.
Oh, okay.
Like, so it could have been your
2.
It could have been your first one.
Must have been 2.
But Toy Story 3 is such a sad one. Oh my god.
Oh, that's one of the ones I wouldn't have watched if I'd known how it was going to pan out. It's too turbulent.
You would have just watched the first videotape of Toy Story 3.
Yeah, just the happy bit and then end.
I just couldn't believe they were going to make a 4th. I mean, the 4th one was great, but I just couldn't believe, like, normally that's what happens. You make a great trilogy, sad ending, but it's a happy ending, it's a full circle moment. And then they made the 4th one. I actually think they're making a 5th one, aren't they?
Probably. My wee nephew, who's only, 3? He loves Buzz Lightyear and Woody. That's like a thing. He's got the toys. He goes on about them. And I'm like, it really has carried, like, generationally.
That's how like, it's one of the most successful franchises ever. Not just Toy Story, but, like, obviously Disney in general. But there's only some that really carry through so many different generations.
Yeah. On Christmas Day, we watched Mary Poppins this year.
Oh,
and
very nice.
My nephew, my sister and me, my mum, and my brother-in-law's parents, and all of us had watched it as children. And I was like, wow, that is a stand-up film. This is like, this has withstood and lasted. Yes, exactly.
All right, so on Wikipedia, possible 5th Toy Story film. In February 2019, Tim Allen, who voiced Lightyear in the films, expressed interest in doing another film, as he didn't see any reason why they would not do it. Tom Hanks said that Toy Story 4 would be the final installment of the franchise, but producer Mark Nielsen disclosed a possibility of a 5th film, as Pixar were not ruling out the possibility.
Wow.
What I'm getting mixed up about is they're doing the Lightyear film this year, which is just a standalone one of Buzz Lightyear with Chris Evans in it.
Oh, cool.
That's coming out this year, but it's not officially Toy Story 5, but...
Sure. Oh, well, maybe that's how they're getting around the Tom Hanks thing.
Maybe, yeah. But I think it's Toy Story. You know what I mean? They're going to probably do more. They have to.
Surely. They're such a success. Like it would be kind of a crazy one to just end, right?
Yeah. Sometimes classic films are good as standalones, but sometimes classic films have sequels. And that was me trying to get a segue into the film we're going to talk about today. That Legally Blonde does have a sequel, but I did not watch it. Is it as good as the first?
Yes. And the third comes out this year.
Oh my God.
I know. I just found out like right before I recommended it to you because I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. The second one is actually really good. And I think if you agree the first one is good, which I don't know if you do yet, then the second one is exactly the same. So I'm hoping the third one is on a similar level.
Here's what we'll do. I'll watch the second one. And then when the third one comes out this year, we can do another episode of the podcast and we'll talk about the new film. That makes sense, doesn't it?
The second one, I'm pretty sure, is called Red, White and Blonde.
That sounds like, yeah.
What's my perfect scenario.
What's the second one called?
Red, White and Blonde.
Oh, I think you said that's what the third one's called.
Oh, no, the second one's called that. I don't know what the third one's called, but I just saw it in like a list of films to watch this year that are coming out. And I saw that there was a third one and I was like, oh my God.
Well, I'll not, I'll put you out your misery. I did really enjoy the film. I'm not going to slate. Like, I'm sure this is one of your favorite films ever. I'm not going to slate it. I did really enjoy it. But in this new kind of format of the good bit, I want to kind of challenge myself and get other people to pick the films, which makes me watch them. You know what I mean? The hardest thing for me is like picking the film myself.
Right.
So when I asked you what film you want to do, why did you pick Legally Blonde?
I was thinking about the films that I genuinely enjoy, not just say that I enjoy to sound clever, right? What I
like
actually
Titanic.
watch. Right. When I'm left on my own, what do I actually watch? And Legally Blonde had its, I want to say 20th anniversary last year. And it was when cinemas were just opening up again. And so it was on at the cinema by us. And so my partner and I went to go and see it last year at the cinema, and I was like, God, this is fantastic. He did not agree, but I just I have such a clear memory of watching it for the first time, and it completely informed what I thought life was like in an American sorority,
right? And
informed the fact that I went and moved to America and joined a sorority. So I just feel like let's be honest, I love that film. Right, it's so funny and happy.
I love the fact that, like, just based on this film, you're like, I'm just going to go and do exactly what she did. Not the law part, but the actual,
not the social part. Right.
The social side.
Bit. Yeah. And I wore my Legally Blonde necklace today. I bought this nice. Purely, I got asked for it as a present purely because it's in the opening credits of Legally Blonde and I always wanted it. And then for my 18th birthday, I got it.
I love it. I love the fact that you wore it today as well. That's great. I thought you were going to say, I bought this for today.
No. This was a teenage Madeleine decision.
Right.
But yeah, it very much threads the line of Legally Blonde to AOPI, which I joined in then. Now.
Okay. So what age were you when this film came out, like when you first saw it?
What age was I when I first saw it? I think I must have been about 12 or 13.
Oh man, that's like saw this. Perfect age for like that type of character, right? Like the kind of dreams and all that stuff.
Yeah. This sort of girl that loves girly stuff, but is also, unapologetic about being quite clever and has ambitions and has goals and doesn't like let all the fun stuff get in the way of all that good stuff too.
Yeah.
And that was like, you can be like girly and cute and still like a total boss, and that's amazing. Right. And there aren't that many films for young girls, or there weren't at the time. Definitely
not at the time. Yeah.
No. Everything was like, oh, get a makeover and then everyone will like you, and then forget about the other stuff that you wanted to do, just be pretty. And that wasn't quite as exciting. And then also it's just really feel good and fun. Like it's not particularly serious or academic.
No, it's not.
It has a really nice message and a good oomph to go and do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's all we ask for in these type of films. You know what I mean? There's no, I mean, if that came out today, right, the original film, right, people would be like raving about it. Obviously, like some folk would be in denial and they'd be like, I'm not going to see that. Like, I'm not going to waste my time on this cheap film or whatever like that. But like the point of going to see films and stuff is just to kind of like switch your mind off and relax and like get lost in the film.
That's it. And I think like this is probably just me grasping at straws, but in our last episode when we watched Birds of Prey and everyone was hailing it as like a feminist icon or whatever, and I just didn't agree. I don't think it was. Yeah. But I'm like, Elle Woods, here is a woman who is, I believe, genuine feminist icon, and actually 20 years before Birds of Prey, and I think a much more progressive and useful message. So
absolutely.
I mean, it stands up.
The world is a completely different place now than it was in 2001, right? Because there's even a scene in Legally Blonde where it's like she is in the sorority thing and she looks outside and there's all these guys with their shirts off and it's like, yeah. And like that's just how culture was in the like early 2000s in America, especially like university and stuff. So
that's
you'd imagine
how it was in 2012 in America, is what I will tell you.
Okay.
When I was there was the frat thing was still very much that. Yeah.
Like all this, like the boys running about with their shirts off and beers and girls and pills and all this stuff.
Yeah, it was not a lie. It was accurate and very much what I saw.
Okay, I would be interested to see what it's like now, because I feel like the world has changed a lot, and even just those 10 years then. But obviously, I think it still will exist. But will that culture still be as prominent? I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't been back to the sorority house in probably like 5 years, 6 years.
Right.
Last time I was there was when I was over for one of the sisters' weddings.
So maybe I think you told me that in the last episode. I think we spoke about that.
Yeah. And so I haven't been since, and I obviously haven't lived there or been to a frat party since. But that was feminism and Me Too and all of the like progress we've made just hadn't touched it yet. It was
really
when No. Man. Free drinks for girls, red cups, beer pong. The sorority houses have house mothers, so there's a woman that lives with you and like checks that you don't have boys in the room and there's no alcohol in the premises. The boys' houses don't have that. They can have parties, they can have beer, they can have bars, they can do whatever. Girls' houses can't.
Jeez.
It's like progress hasn't reached there yet, or hadn't when I was there. And I'm sure there are exceptions, and I'm sure certain campuses do it better. But the one I was in, I had a great time, but it was very Elle Woods.
Whereabouts? Chicago, right? Or Illinois?
I was in Champaign, Illinois. Yeah, right. So it's Urbana-Champaign is one of the Big Ten. They call it the Big Ten schools. I think it's to do with football.
Okay.
But yeah, it's in Illinois, outside of Chicago, and it's very, very Greek life heavy, which is sororities and frats. And I joined a sorority, and so you partner with various frats and have parties and formals and things like that.
Nice.
And it is very, I was like, it cannot be like Legally Blonde, like it can't be. And it really is. Like it's not, it wasn't wrong. It didn't lie to me.
Using Legally Blonde as like what you're basing it off of. I love that. You're thinking like your first part, you're like, this better be like Legally Blonde.
Listen, Elle Woods, Mary-Kate and Ashley, all these people I was thinking I'll arrive in America and this will be it. And in a lot of ways it wasn't.
Yeah.
But in many ways it wasn't that far off, you know?
Yeah. But I do like the fact that she is like an icon, like the character Elle Woods. But even just Reese, easy for me to say, Reese Witherspoon is just like, there's something about her as an actress people just love and just like look up to so much.
I know she started the production company, right? She started her own production company and she's started commissioning all these female-led projects that just weren't getting commissioned before.
Nice.
And so I think, what was the one about her? Was it Wild or something? What did she win the Oscar for? There was the one where she's out in the wilderness, you know?
Wild might be it.
Yeah. There was a whole bunch that sort of came from around about then onwards, where she is really like doing the work in terms of commissioning smart, funny, female-led projects that are a bit more progressive than what we've been seeing up until now. So I think she also, as an actress, is someone who walks the walk.
She's also really good. Do you know what I mean? Like people always say that she's an icon, I love her, but she's actually really good.
She's really funny. Like it's not easy to be funny, and she is hilarious. Right?
I mean, this character, the Elle Woods, is very much like Rachel Green's sister in Friends, and that's where I first saw Reese Witherspoon, and that's how I know her, even though she's only in like 3 episodes of Friends, but I just know her from that. and it's just that ditzy blonde character. And I love the fact that they were going to try and do that and then just add loads of different layers to it that just wasn't happening in Hollywood at that time. But it's like I love how they just jumped in full speed. They're like, okay, it's going to be a lawyer. They're going to go to Harvard and it's going to be, they're not going to, it's not as if like, I'm so happy, spoiler to no one who's seen the film here, but I'm so happy it didn't end with like her getting the old boyfriend back. Because it was always like, oh, that's what she wants, but is it really what she wants? Is that really the best thing for her?
Right.
And and yet she ends up with Luke Wilson, Owen Wilson's brother, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, they look very similar, to be fair. I'm looking at his picture now. They look very similar. And they've got the same kind of style
nose, right?
Right, yeah. And the eyebrows, the same kind of style of acting. And I just think that those two brothers are completely weird too, but in the best way. But he's just as ditzy as her, so they kind of make a good pairing. And it's like, it's not as in your face as like, these are the two characters that are going to get together. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
You think maybe that'll happen, and that would be nice. He seems like a nice boy.
But it's based on having good ideas and being like good, a shared passion, and like being a sort of underestimated person with a lot to offer just because you aren't a conventional person that everyone else is. And I'm like, that's a great message, and not one that was around that much in 2001.
I thought, what's her name? Jennifer Coolidge, who's also in Friends. Jeez. That whole storyline was ridiculous with like the delivery man and like so I'm assuming the whole thing where like they drop the pen and then they do the pop thing. Like I'm assuming
snap.
I'm assuming that was it snap. I said pop. Sorry, snap. I'm assuming that was like a massive thing. Like people were just doing that all the time, like for a laugh.
I'm sure. I don't remember that being I remember it being like an iconic scene.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm sure it permeated culture.
I don't mean people were like in the office doing that every day. I just mean.
I bet there were people who tried it. Let's be real. There were some people bending and snapping in the office just to see.
It's like, in like Men in Black, they do like the dance. And then people in nightclubs started dancing like that. I wonder if people in nightclubs were doing the bend and snap.
That could get very violent very quickly by accident.
Yeah.
With a lot of flailing arms.
Victor Garber as Professor Callahan. I recognise his face. Let's click on his.
He's such a good baddie.
He's in Titanic. Look at that, full circle.
Elegantly done.
Not my first podcast. So he's Thomas Andrews. He's one of like the main kind of captains on the ship that's kind of telling everybody to get off in Titanic. And he's also in Legally Blonde as Professor Callahan, and he's the one that is like the lawyer, right?
He's the professor who gives them all an internship and a chance to work on real case law. And then
he has a goal.
A very Me Too kind of moment where it seems like that's why she's been hired. But then, obviously, spoiler alert, gives the chance for her to join up with the women in the film and one or two ally men and, do her own thing, become a lawyer without his help and without his approval. And that is, I love that message. I love that. Yeah.
My, not my favourite part of the film, but one of my favourite parts is the opening song. What's it called?
Perfect Day.
Perfect Day. So, it's such an early 2000s, almost Disney sounding song.
Yes. Yep.
Like High School Musical or something like that,
It's probably a similar, that soundtrack on any film probably means I'm going to love it. Probably means it's about the right level of anguish that I can manage on any given day.
It's cheesy, but not like in a cheesy way.
I have zero problem with cheesy. Cheesy is repeated because it works, right? People enjoy it.
Exactly. And it's like it sets the tone for the film. And when you see a song like that or a music video like that or something like that, the kind of vibe it's going to give. Yes. So
I'm like, I'm safe here. This probably doesn't end in like a double suicide. We're all right, right? Like we're going to be fine here.
I'm very glad that I'm in isolation and I'm watching this film. This is the first film I watched when I was ill, and it did cheer me up. I must say, I did. I was feeling good the next day. I would never have watched Legally Blonde without this recommendation, and it's not because I'm like this guy that's like I'm not watching these films, with like female leads. That's not me at all. but it's just I would never have watched it.
Well, it's a very silly one. Like, it's an odd one to choose for no reason. But no, I was curious to hear what you think, because for me, it's such a childhood and then adolescent and teenage girl thing that I cannot separate it from teenage Madeleine being like, oh, she's so cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, if you watched it as an adult for the first time, would it do anything? So I'm glad you liked it.
I think it would. I think it would do something, especially like if you still have, no matter what age you are, if you still have like aspirations and things like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But listen, I liked it and stuff like that. It's not as if this has like changed my life or anything like that. I'm not going to have the posters on my wall. However,
you're not going to move to America and join a sorority.
maybe one day. Let me just try this acting thing out first in Scotland, sure. And then we'll see. But yeah, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like if I was, you know, obviously I would relate to it more if I was a female and like would really want to go for something like this. But like, I still enjoyed it as a guy. You know what I mean? So it's not a total write-off. It was a good film. I enjoyed it.
Good. Were there any bits that like jarred you where you were like, oh no, I don't want that to be the thing?
Probably. I can't remember them. So maybe that's a good thing, to the point where it's like it's not as if this big red flag that I was like, I have to mention that on the podcast. But I did think the pop bend and snap thing was funny. That was the thing that I liked the most. I think that was a good laugh. And I can imagine if I was to do that, someone might worry for my health. But yeah, no.
Me too. I'm sure I could not. I don't know that anyone pulls that off if they're not Reese Witherspoon.
No, then she headers him. That was really funny. I was howling at that. That's it. That was my favorite moment. She headers him. That was funny.
Yes.
She is funny, that actress, Jennifer Coolidge. What else is she in?
I always thought it was Coolidge. She's in everything.
Coolidge.
What can I think about? Cinderella Story. Did you ever watch that? Hilary Duff one?
No, and I watched that. American Pie. She's in American Pie. Let's see.
I feel like that's a really good snapshot of our teenage years for me to be like Cinderella Story and you to be like American Pie. I
was not a teenager in American Pie, I must say.
Oh, I don't even know if I was. But I feel like, they're quite gender specific.
But you're right, yeah. But you know, that's not me. I'm not watching Cinderella Story. I'm watching American Pie. She's in Zoolander. That was a big film for her in that time.
That was good. Yeah, I remember that. God, she's in everything. She pops up all the time.
Do you know who she's in?
Tell me.
Seinfeld. Look at that. This is almost like it's done on purpose.
That's it. God.
You know,
well done.
So she's in Friends as like Phoebe and Monica's like annoying friend that thinks she's British, accent. Right? And then did you ever watch Joey, the spin-off of Friends?
I think I saw like one episode.
Right. So she's now his agent in Joey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not as the same character as
the
Friends
character. I bet
character.
she'd do a good agent, actually.
Yeah.
You can see her with that kind of brashness.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Quite prominent as a character, quite like bold and stuff like that. Yeah, so she is in everything. So who knows where she'll pop up next?
Hopefully Legally Blonde 3.
Yeah. That is really, so you're telling me in the second one she's not murdered or anything like that? No horrific homicides in Legally Blonde 2. It keeps the very same
vibe.
Okay.
Yeah. The sort of disruption, the consequence, the action is still very low stakes.
So you said that like it's very similar to the first one. So what's the plot of the second one then? Does she become a lawyer elsewhere?
So the second one, she's qualified lawyer. She's planning her wedding to Emmett. She is so she's working on Capitol Hill. And so she's trying to ban animal testing because she finds out her dog has a mother and the dog's mother is in some animal testing lab.
Oh,
and
no.
So she tries to get a law changed to make animal testing illegal and then thinks she has this ally, but then it turns out maybe the ally's a baddie and like all the politicians on Capitol Hill are like, you've got to do it this way. And she's like, I'm going to do it my way. And then goes and, takes on animal testing on Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Then right at the end, again, spoiler alert, they're like, what are you going to do next, Elle? And she sees the White House and then like winks and is like, who knows? So I'm like, in the third one, is she going to run for president?
And the third film comes out 20 years later. Like,
so I'm like, could there be an Elle Woods for president?
I reckon that'll be a bit. And that's a really good like marketing thing too. They can promote that a lot, having like these stickers and things like that. Like, that's a good idea.
So here's hoping.
Oh, I can't wait. Genuinely. Another thing as well. You've seen High School Musical, haven't you?
Yes.
You've seen High School Musical 2?
I don't know. Which one is that?
That's the one like at the golf club and things like that.
Oh yeah, I do, because I remember the golf club dance routine.
Yeah, and Troy's like dancing,
and they're like punching grass, and you're like, why?
And like getting sand and throwing it out of his fingers and things like that.
Yes, I do remember.
So the character of Sharpay, played by Ashley Tisdale, it's just Elle Woods.
Well, it is and it isn't, I think.
Well,
is Sharpay not kind of a baddie?
A baddie, but what I mean is she's not the same person, but she's taken so much inspiration from the Elle Woods character, because she claims to be standing on her own 2 feet and going to do this, but obviously she never does because her father's rich and stuff like that. But like she carries the dog in the wee bag.
Yeah.
And she wears the kind of the suits, you know what I mean? Like Elle wears to work. Great. I just thought I just think that must be, because I mean it's probably the same age as well. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it was the Paris Hilton era,
right?
I think.
Exactly.
Where it was very like pink velvet tracksuit, dog in a handbag, this exact necklace.
So maybe it's not just Elle Woods then. Yeah, maybe it's just a whole movement.
I think it was like a Beverly Hills moment of like, that was the whole fashion, and I think she kind of is the epitome of that, maybe in a film. But yeah, there was a lot of that around, because even in Mean Girls, like it carries through that, like blonde
Mean Girls
rich.
Mean Girls is kind of more my time, I think. So I've never seen it, but I think I've always been told that I'd like Mean Girls. I think maybe because it is more my kind of generation, maybe I think I'd relate to it a little bit more. So maybe Mean Girls is one to check out.
Oh, I can't believe, there's so many ones you haven't. These are a great film. Yeah, you need to watch Mean Girls.
Okay.
I'm surprised you haven't seen it.
No, I know.
It's such a staple, I feel like.
There's no reason why I've not seen it. I guess it was out and I just never saw it in cinema. So you never. It's different now with all the streaming stuff, but I'd never buy it on DVD and stuff. So like, maybe now if it was.
Tina Fey wrote it.
No, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, Tina Fey wrote it, and she's in it. Like, not a huge part, but she's in it, and so that kind of gives a good stamp of quality. I feel like it's not just a random. Yeah. Tina Fey makes anything good, I feel.
So do you have any other thoughts on Legally Blonde, or we could sign off? Like, what is this something that's like a film that really defined a moment in your life? Is this something that really means a lot to you?
I think probably it is not, to be clear, it's not the reason I moved to America, right? That was probably going to happen anyway. But I think the character was a bit of a trailblazer for me, at least. I hadn't seen many films where that was the vibe. It wasn't about getting the guy, and it wasn't about all that other stuff. So I think for me, it holds a very specific moment in time of like deciding what kind of, when you go to high school and you got to be like, what kind of girl am I going to be? Because there's however many groups and you're meant to fit into one of them. And then it's like, you like school and you like clever stuff, but it's kind of uncool to like that stuff. So maybe you pretend to be ditzy and you do that thing, and it's like a real thing, I think, feeling like you have to like dumb yourself down to fit in that. And I think Elle Woods is a really good icon of not doing that, or like, just because you're one doesn't mean you can't be the other. Totally. And so I think that was a good, films like that, probably wasn't the only one, but films like that for me as a teenager were very affirming of like, you can be super ambitious and still kind and nice and friendly and all these other things. Because in other films, it's not. There's the pretty nice one and the ambitious, scary looking one on the phone,
geeky one or whatever. And the funny how just things change though, because almost I feel like now it's cool to be smart and clever and go to all these fancy universities and things like that, whereas like it seems in the early 2000s like people, it just wasn't cool to be clever. Like it's crazy to think about that.
I think the idea was you can be cool in high school or you can be smart, but you can't really be both. And that I think is a really good, like, you can do whatever you want to do, and here's how, and here's like, you can still want to be like the person who's cool. Like, it's not one or the other. And I think
you can be whatever you want to be.
It's not just a makeover and then you come downstairs and everyone's like, oh, she's pretty now. Let's listen to her. And which was very the vibe of the day.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
No.
I appreciate this film for that reason.
Good call. Thank you for recommending it. And I'm very happy I watched it now. It's one to tick off that list of classic
Sequel
films.
Next.
Okay. The next episode we'll do, what did you say it was? Red, White and Blonde?
Legally Blonde 2, Red, White and Blonde.
Okay. The next episode of The Good Bit will not be that. Right. Thanks for listening and watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you all next time.